Do I have time? Oh, God. Do I have time to run this? Do you have to do one? Okay, you've got time. We don't need to have a quarter.
All right, Mr. Austin, here he goes.
Oh yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
That's him.
Very cool.
Who's that?
My grandson.
Talked to Raphael. Talked to Raphael. Last time I tried to get him, he was doing wisdom teaching.
So,
He said he'd call you back. I don't know what happened with that. I don't know what he said. He had heard from you. He had tried to call you back, but maybe he had to return a call or something. I don't know.
Could be. Yeah. Could be.
Yeah, I might be playing for
so the rental payment thresholds resolution isn't in my book. Is that correct?
See, it should be.
I thought it was tab 7.
Tab 6.
No, tab 6 is the RFQ.
What number is it?
Should be tab 7, but I have Ting as tab 7. And then I didn't have
What is the number?
oh, resolution 1384, the rental payment thresholds. Oh, let's see. It is her tab 6, just not mine. I have a copy of it. I just want to make sure other people did.
Somebody has a copy of it?
Latit is there. I have a copy.
Okay.
Just make sure everybody. Which are you looking?
Resolution 1384.
1384. It should be your tab 7.
Sorry,
Tab 6. Should
Yep.
be your tab 6.
It's in here.
Okay. Hi. You found the secret little cafe
Yes.
for us. Great.
How are you?
I'm tired.
Well, now that we are all here, with the exception of a few folks who I think will be a little bit late, shall we get started?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Excellent, because we have a big old agenda tonight.
Are we gonna be through by 8?
And with your cooperation, we'll be done by 8 in terms of keeping things on time. Welcome. It is Monday, April 30th, and this is the regular board meeting of the Charlottesville Redevelopment and Housing Authority. May I have a roll call of commissioners, please?
Sure. Commissioner Oliver.
Here.
Commissioner Yates.
Present.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner Talbert. Commissioner Rodiger.
Here.
Commissioner Osteen.
Here.
Commissioner Bellamy.
Great. And I did, Commissioner Talbert just called to say she had to pick up her daughter unexpectedly, but is on her way. So she apologizes for not being here at the start, but will join us as soon as she can. With that, we have a time in our agenda for public comments. Oh, thank you, Mr. Duffield. Mr. Duffield reminds me we have time for a moment of silence. So we'll just have a quick moment of silence. Thank you. Now we have time for public comments.
Good evening. My name is Annette Wilcox. For those of you who remember Shamara Cooper, she came to my apartment to do the inspection last week, and I passed housing quality inspection to keep me on Section 8 for as long as I like to be. Yeah,
Great.
Wonderful.
yeah, because she was concerned, yeah, as long as I'm yes, because I pass because I'm careful not to drip faucets to waste water. And I pay my rent on time to have a pretty place to live as long as I like to at 14 at Monticello Vista Apartments.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Wilcox.
Why?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, Brandon Collins. I work for the Public Housing Association of Residents at 1000 Preston Avenue, Suite C. You can call us at 434-984-3255 and find us online at www.farcville.org. FAR is the duly recognized, duly elected Resident Advisory Council and Resident Advisory Board for Public Housing in Charlottesville, which I think you all knew. First off, here are some comments. A bunch of our folks are in a training tonight, so that's why you're not going to see them here. However, it is a fairly potentially historic type of meeting, and I'm really excited about that. And actually, in these comments, some are actually holdovers from last month, which is, we're still excited to see movement in this housing authority towards a better future. The residents on the job program and redevelopment in particular. I'm not going to go through this super in depth, but we do have one thing that's been itching at us for a little bit, and that is the idea of this consent agenda that you have, and particularly this was part of discussion at the last resident services meeting. Resident services is really a great forum for residents to participate. It doesn't get a ton of participation, but a lot of really deep issues get brought forward, and I think it's wise of this housing authority to get to make time for a report on the Resident Services Committee and to allow y'all some discussion of the issues that are brought forth with that. Otherwise, there's a real fear that that's just going unnoticed, and there's a lot of deep stuff that gets discussed in that committee. Next on here is resident-led redevelopment, and I don't know if you all recall a while back, I gave comment to this board about redevelopment and how you all here who are sitting on the board, I think Mr. Osteen wasn't here at the time, but that you all are the ones who are going to make sure this all happens, and that includes the folks over at FAR as well, and the residents who are deeply engaged, and your staff. And it is historic, and I think it's important that we all, at this point moving forward, really remind ourselves why we're doing this, why we're having redevelopment, and that is because of residents of public housing in a low-wealth community in Charlottesville. And Charlottesville's negative history demands that we create a brighter future for the people. And you all are uniquely situated to handle that. It's a really heavy load. And I expect that all of you are in it, even those of you who may come off the board, that this is really your mission. This is what we have, demanded from you. And you need to see this through, and I think FAR is prepared to do that as well. Residents on the job is going along, a couple of things here and there to make sure that program's working, but I really hope that's something you all can continue to highlight, a really great step forward for this housing authority and for residents. We're excited to see a resolution about customer service improvements and timely communication with residents. I think, part of what that's going to be about is the implementation and making sure that this 36 hours is held to. But the past month has brought some really hard resident problems that have come to FAR's desk, and a lot of it does boil down to communication. We know we know you're understaffed. We know there are challenges. We look forward to seeing a full, competent staff. And I think communication is going to be a big one, because that's what we hear a ton of, that people just aren't getting back to about their issues. Smoke-free policy, we sent comments. I hope you looked at them. I think we feel pretty confident that most of what we had is reflected in the policy. We do have one question, and that's mainly because some of us missed a meeting on this. But this in the lease addendum, it talks about enforcement as being, a visual confirmation that someone's smoking, but then it mentions use of detection technology, and so I would love to just hear what that means. Maybe somebody can explain what that means in the lease addendum. And then lastly, the 5-year plan process. Yeah, we're on the edge of historic undertaking here in Charlottesville, and it coincides with developing a 5-year plan for this housing authority. I think this is the time. We always say it every year with the annual plan, let's get together and do a strategic planning and work together. Some of that's y'all dropping the ball, some of that's FAR dropping the ball, some of that's just being busy, and this housing authority is extremely busy, but I do think it's important that we make that time to develop a clear strategy for the next 5 years. Everything's changing. And it's so important that we be able to work together and set a course for the future that's going to make a brighter day in Charlottesville. All right, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Collins. Did you want to make a comment, Ms. Good?
No, I'm
Okay.
just picking up stuff.
Thank you. I want to thank Brandon for giving us a great overview of our agenda tonight. And for all the work FAR has done in partnership with the Housing Authority and so many of the items before us tonight. As you all can see, we have a lot before us, so I don't want to leave out any really important comments or discussions, but I am hoping that together we can move pretty quickly and be mindful of time. So with that, first we have our consent agenda.
I'd like to make a motion that we move to accept, to pass the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next on our is a resolution 1381 about customer service requirements for staff, and that's under tab 2 in your binders. And this is something that did come directly from the last resident services meeting, which was that, we just have been hearing an increased amount of frustration on the part of residents and staff about just a real breakdown in communications, and a real frustration on a lot of people's parts that voicemail boxes are full and, messages seeming to get lost. So from that, Resident Services Committee came forward with this suggestion for a resolution to add encourage better communications within our personnel policy, in the section of our policy that talks about workplace conduct and expectations for work. And basically, the resolution asks that, or requires that staff reply to all emails, written messages, and voicemail messages from residents within 36 hours. It doesn't mean staff has to have a perfect answer or a complete reply, but if nothing else, an acknowledgement that message was received and the process is going, so that people don't feel ignored. And also to empty all voicemail boxes by the end of each workday so new messages can be received. Even if you write your messages down, or maybe we have to figure out how to get bigger voicemail boxes, but making sure that people really can leave messages. Are there any thoughts, comments, or questions?
I just have one question. Since Latita isn't here, I'll ask a Latita question.
Thank you.
No, in all seriousness, when it says on I think it's the fourth whereas, I just was looking at it and circled it. The second one, CRHA believes that a cornerstone of professional customer service and operational efficiency involves the prompt and unimpeded transfer of information between our clients, residents, and staff. And then followed by staff routinely receive communication from public housing. How are we defining routinely? So how often would that be? Is there a...
I think it's just citing the fact that our clients and residents contact our staff regularly. So I think
Okay.
routine just means people call their
People
property
call
off.
it. Okay.
People, right, am I correct? That it's
Yeah.
just to say people
Yeah.
call their
Yeah.
Okay.
asset managers, people call their HCV
Okay,
contacts.
so I was misinterpreting. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it doesn't require routine on anybody's part. It's just saying that people call us.
Call the time. Okay.
Thank you. Good Latita question.
But I have a question also, and I'm not sure if this falls under the staff or a combination of the staff and maintenance. But there seemed to be a problem with the scheduling of the community centers right now. And I know in the past that when there are events, when scheduling the community center, you schedule at least a half an hour before the event starts for setup. And then there's another half an hour added on to the end for the cleanup of the event. And that doesn't seem to be happening. It's like there are people now that's coming in over top of each other. So I don't know if it's a maintenance scheduling issue or if it's the clerical at Crescent House issue. I need that to be cleared up so that we can understand who's making the reservations for the community center, and to make sure that they understand that they need to make sure that when people are scheduling those community centers that they do have that half an hour before and that half an hour afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there other thoughts or questions about
I
this
have a
resolution?
question, just if any staff want to chime in. It does the 36-hour time frame. I mean, I know that's, you know, as a customer, I would want that. I'm just wondering what the staff's opinion of that, if that's a doable time frame.
It's doable.
Do you want to?
Yeah, and to be fair, we did not vet this thoroughly with staff, so thank you for asking
And I
that
just want to,
question.
because I myself get a lot of communications all day, and
36.
and if I don't, I mean, I really truly try to, you know, at the end of the week, try to go back and make sure I at least read them all. But you know, so I know, I feel for you. So
Do I have to say my name?
No, we know.
Okay. It's doable to an extent. It depends on what the communication is. There are some communications that we can answer right away. There are some communications that we can't say, we'll get back to you because it's of an urgent matter. And then there are some communications, depending on who it's coming from, how fast we have to respond. So there are a number of factors, but we try as best as we can to return calls or emails. Some things it takes a little bit more research, and we're letting the residents know we have to look into it, but then sometimes they'll show up at the office because they want that right away, and we can't turn over information that fast. So I think, like you said, I guess if it's understood what the communication is, and on behalf of the staff, if we could let the residents know there are certain things, sometimes they want things out of their file. If we have appointments coming in, we can't just turn things over right away and stop what we're doing, because we got to give everyone the same amount of customer service that's coming through the door. So if we're doing a recertification or a meeting with someone, we have to sit there and, you know, give them that time. So someone else just coming in that's not scheduled, wanting what they want at that moment. So I guess if we let them know if it's certain things you need out of your file, you can give us a 24-hour notice, or, you know, something like that. Many of our partners, like with social services and other partner agencies, they're aware of the time restraints that we have, but some of the information that they're requesting, it needs to be done as fast as possible. Some of it can wait. Some email communications, depending on which entity it's from, they're not as understanding, and then it's escalated sometimes to our director. So
In all events, however, I think we should be able to acknowledge someone that we've received
right.
and Yeah, it doesn't mean we have to answer it
Right.
right away, but yes, we've received it and it's on the radar. We'll get it as quickly as we can.
And as long as our residents understand that also,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, that
Yeah.
we're responding, we received it, but. it's
Yeah,
taking
and
some
if you
time.
can say I've received it, but this, request,
Right.
I'll be able to do it by Thursday, or, a timeline when they can, then I think people are fine. I think a lot of people, we got the impression that they were just feeling like it was going in a hole. And not, no offense to you, I
Oh,
know,
no,
like things
not
are really,
taking,
really
not
busy.
taking.
And of course, we have an expectation that you're actually going to be, in the meetings with people and in
Right.
the community, and
Right.
you're not behind your keyboard or,
Right.
you don't have
Playing
your
games or
phone.
anything like that, yes.
And I do think that, there's some brainstorming happening around ways that the housing authority might be able to staff phone and email better.
Right.
So that there's less pressure on folks who need to be in the meetings.
Right.
So, that said, we just definitely wanted to acknowledge.
So we can move fast if I get an answer to the question about the community centers?
So-
Who's doing the booking of the community centers? Because I haven't heard the answer to that question yet.
Okay, who does the booking of the community centers? Isn't,
I don't do the bookings, but I can speak to the person who does the bookings, because in the past, we have reserved a half hour.
You have what?
In the past, I have told people to put half hour on each side for cleanup and breakdown. And I try not to have people overlap, so I'll explain it. I
Okay.
just need to review this with the
Yeah.
person doing the position right now.
fair enough. And did we put the key fobs
Clarify.
in? Do we have the key fob system yet?
Not yet.
Not yet,
It's
okay.
coming.
Yay.
So I'll re-clarify it with her.
So it sounds like there's a new person doing booking and we're just going to train them.
Yeah.
Great,
Okay.
okay. Because that's not part of this resolution, but I hear your concern.
Like I said, I wasn't sure where it falls in at. I knew it fall in somewhere along the line. I just needed an answer to the question. And, okay, I don't want to have to come next month and ask the same question again.
Be nice.
You got that, Mr. Duffield?
Yes.
Mhm.
Got it.
It's a sunny Monday outside. Nice.
I have one petty little comment.
Yeah.
So we got 36 hours. It'd be
Yeah.
interesting to know how you arrive at 36 hours, but, as I look at it, if the call comes in at the end of a business day, you got 16 hours for everybody's back, then you got a 8-hour workday, then 16 hours, another 16 hours, so unless they get back to them the following day, that's gonna be 40 hours right there, so that's beyond the 36.
I'm certainly open to changing that
What if
number
it just said by the close of business the following day?
the following business day, so there's
Yeah,
not weekend
yes,
requirements. Is that fair?
They're gonna say
I think that's fair.
To staff, to,
I think they need to answer that question. And it's them that we're putting this on, so I mean it's only fair that they get to have a say in what we did. I mean that's just my opinion.
It depends.
You need to be at the mic. Sorry.
Well, we understand there is emergency, and a lot of this is just acknowledgement. I mean,
Right.
that's the big, I understood all your emergency issues and all of that, but overwhelmingly, we should be able to acknowledge that we have heard your phone message,
Right.
and we will be following up at our earliest convenience. Not the greatest answer somebody to get, but at least they know that you know, so they don't need to call again tomorrow.
but still, 10 acknowledgement calls might take you a half an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now at our office, if we get messages, if Perpetude answers the phone and it's someone for me, she'll give me the messages and I ask her to let them, whoever it is, let them know that I called them. I try to call by the close of business that day, if not first thing in the morning. Some residents, depending on what the message, I guess it is also with the messages too.
Sure.
Some things you have to.
But we're saying,
Just
this is kind of
acknowledge
to
it.
address the little things that
Yeah.
might not rise to the absolute top of
Right.
staff, but we want everybody to know we're trying to close the loop here.
I would say 48 hours is fair.
48.
Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about just a typical
I'd agree.
call.
I'd agree.
Yeah. If it's an emergency, then we know what that, And many of us that have our phones, we're checking it throughout the day, but 48 hours, I
I
think
think
is fair.
48 hours is fair.
Not 36.
All right, so 48 hours, do I hear anything against a 48 hour?
Nope.
Okay, so the resolution is amended from 36 to 48 hour response time. If there are no other questions, I'd welcome a motion.
So I'd like to make a motion that we pass CRHA resolution number 1381, a resolution amending section 5 of the CRHA personnel policy concerning workplace conduct to require certain best practices related to communications and customer service, with an amendment to the final paragraph, which changes the verbiage from residents within 36 hours to 48.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Next on our agenda is Resolution 1383, Smoke-Free Policy and Lease Addendum. And I'll let staff make a presentation.
Certainly. Commissioners, behind tab 3, you have Resolution 1383. This is a resolution that will enable CRHA to move forward with a smoke-free policy. As commissioners are aware, in December of 2016, HUD passed a final rule concerning smoke-free environments within public housing communities, requiring all public housing authorities to adopt smoke-free standards within their communities no later than August 1st, 2018. Over the past 10 months, staff has been working very closely with FAR, community members, and other stakeholders. We've held over 43 community meetings and planning meetings during that time. Process has involved exploration of critical issues around the implementation of a smoke-free policy. We have surveyed other communities, public housing communities, smoke-free policies, and developed through this process both a policy and a lease addendum, which we feel reflects the values and needs of our community, while also adhering to the standards set forth within the HUD final rule. As commissioners are aware, many of these meetings and interactions took place at the various public housing sites. As FAR and Legal Aid have recommended, we continue to move forward with education and definition meetings, specifically activities involving chalking of the chalk lining painting of the new smoke-free zones, continued information provision to public housing residents, and continue sponsorship of smoking cessation organizations and opportunities for residents. Based on the work that's been done, based on the tremendous support and feedback from both the community and FAR, we are pleased to bring before you what we believe is a smoke-free policy that, again, represents the values of our community and is supportable across the public housing neighborhoods.
Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver has been really spearheading this effort on the part of the board and has attended countless meetings. And I didn't know if you wanted to make any comments or offer any insight into the policy here.
I just wanted to say I've had 2 residents from Crescent Halls who were kind of fighting against the policy, but one has joined the smoke-free group who told me the other day that she's gone from 2.5 packs of cigarettes a day to 4 a day. And the other one told me that she's gone to 7 a day. And so I was pretty happy with that. But it hasn't been as bad as I thought it would be with residents, because there are a lot of folks who really want to stop. And I think that with the professionals that we brought in, has really helped a lot. And so I think there's more folks who are really wanting to stop.
Great. Thank you. Are there thoughts, comments, questions from?
Yeah, to get back to the question from FAR about the detection technology.
Yeah.
What is the detection technology?
Well, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
There is one of the devices that other housing authorities have used in situations in which you have a resident who approaches the housing authority and says, look, my neighbor downstairs, my neighbor beside me, I smell this, it's affecting my health or my children's health. How can you verify that? Well, one of the opportunities is to use a CO2 monitor that can detect smoke. Now, it's not something that we envision placing in every unit and routinely monitoring that way. It very much would be a reactive case. Someone would have to bring us an issue that had some reason to believe was credible and needs some opportunity to try and verify outside of a visual confirmation. That's what's intended by technology device. The reason we don't cite CO2 monitor itself is that technology could change in the future, and we don't want to be confined to an outdated technology if there's something that's more effective in the future.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the management control of this involves 5 violations. I wonder if the technology might just, automatically be imposed after 3 or 2 or something like that. I feel a little bit bad about somebody that has never, I guess it'd be pretty easy for a single person to exclusively smoke in their unit and never go out. But I don't really feel great about trying to get out in front of any known violation, but start putting monitors in some units and not in others.
I think it was really to handle complaints, because you have to have some way, if you're not on, we've built a policy that is around, actual credible evidence of smoking, which in most cases is visible.
Mm-hmm.
But if staff isn't on the grounds at midnight, but there's, someone who's health affected next door to a unit and they're regularly getting smoke in their windows and it's a problem, then we need some way to verify those complaints or not. But I don't think it should be I guess my question back to you would be is, if the violation were based on a visual thing, if they got 3 of those, would you still need a monitor?
Well, but then you'd be monitoring for 4 and 5 in pretty quick succession. So then, I might be a little lackadaisical until the first time I was caught, and then I'd straighten up my act. But I don't know, I really feel bad about
having it be so subjective.
Resident tattling.
Yeah, that's kind of my.
Well, we did
that initiates, something that at that point doesn't appear to be equally enforced to me.
I think that part of the problem was that there was zero mechanism for residents who might have a complaint in our policy without that as a measure of recourse.
Right.
Because it has to be, as you know, we want to be fair to smokers for sure, but we also want to be fair to the health affected and have some mechanism within the policy for people who do feel like they're suffering, but for it not to be tattling. I think that was the whole point of the detection technology, was like, you can't just be somebody who wants to complain about their neighbor. Like, there has to be some way to verify it.
Yeah.
But I hear your, maybe there is, I think we envisioned that it would be in the case of, sort of serious regular complaints, so maybe that, maybe there is some mechanism. I don't know, what are your thoughts, those of you who've been deep into crafting?
Are you talking to me or Ren? Me?
Both of you.
My feeling is, people who don't smoke deserve just as much respect as those who do. And I know that recently there's been concerns about odors in Crescent Halls. That we found out that some of those odors, just the odors could be killing or causing other health problems for folks. That could be serious issues. So, I don't think it's always the fact of people tattling on each other. I think it's, for me, I hate to see people standing in front of Crescent Halls smoking cigarettes when there are people coming in and out on oxygen tanks. Right. So again, I just feel like people who don't smoke deserve the same respect as people who smoke. Right. And I'm not a smoker anymore, but I know that any time I could get that trigger, it could happen.
Which also deserves a round.
But I also give those respect that do smoke, but I also give those respect who don't. Right. And if I'm, if I felt like I want to smoke, I will walk away from them and have my smoke, but I'm not going to stand there in front of the door, and not just Crescent Halls, but anywhere. I've done it at the bus stops when I was smoking. If I was sitting beside somebody or somebody was near me, I would say, do you mind if I smoke? And if they give me the then I know it's not okay, so I step away. But yeah, I don't think it's just tattling. I think you have to have that respect.
Okay.
I mean, would you like to offer an official amendment to the policy?
I accept
Okay.
that.
Okay.
I'm not offering an amendment, but I have a question. I'm just wondering if we posted no smoking signs yet with lease violation codes on them for reminders for the residents who are still doing that, so that a reminder is present and visible that there is no smoking, and if caught smoking, there's a lease violation, and this is where it's violating your lease, so that we have something to refer them back to just in general conversation if caught during a daily walkthrough or visit to a unit.
We have signage that's being crafted and will be ordered shortly to post on all the properties. Establish a smoke-free area. I'm not sure if we reference a lease violation or not. I need to look at that.
Yes, ma'am. We have a comment from staff.
We have them posted in our offices, so each time the group updates it, we have them posted in our office, and as residents are coming in for the recertifications, we're giving them copies of it and having them to sign off on it. So they're aware that we're going smoke-free July 1st, and also what the group has come up with as far as the violations and all. So it's posted in our offices.
Great, thank you.
So, Grant, what was the date you said they'll be posted in on the property? July 1st?
Oh.
They'll be installed enough
Right,
by then, for
right,
sure.
right,
Enforcement
right.
begins July 1, but all the notifications. So what, maybe Mr. Duffield, you want to walk us quickly through what are the steps between now when we approve the policy and July 1 when enforcement begins?
Right. Well, by approving the policy and lease addendum now, we open a 60-day period during which residents are asked to come in and sign the lease addendum. The lease addendum sets forth in 2 pages what essentially the policy references. Also during that time, we will make sure that we have signage posted effective July 1st, smoke-free environment, smoke-free community. We are also planning a smoke-free kickoff celebration, I guess.
Depending on how.
Yeah, that's right, yes?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. We will go door to door this week with the approved policy, assuming commission approves it this evening. With the approved policy, we'll include a property map that shows where the smoke-free zones will be. Those are the steps we're taking at this point, sort of pre-implementation.
How are we tracking people who have not signed for this policy in their lease because maybe they recertified and they don't recertify again until next year and this policy wasn't yet approved or wasn't yet put in their file? How are we tracking who we need to go back and see and revisit to have that signed and put in their lease?
Yeah, we're keeping a separate roster, if you will, of each property, and the asset managers are working that file.
Great.
Mhm.
If there are no other thoughts or comments, I'd welcome a motion.
Audrey. I move that we pass CRHA resolution number 1383, a resolution adopting a smoke-free policy and lease addendum for CRHA properties in accordance with HUD requirements and guidance, instituting smoke-free public housing. Their final rule was December 5th, 2016.
And since the motion's been made, I know we've already had discussion, but going into discussion, I just wanted to ensure that the two residents, both Ms. Tolliver and Mr. Yates, are both fully behind this.
You're up here, you have to speak louder.
So, you just on the roll today. I just want to ensure that both our residents are in full support, correct, of the policy as it's written. No issues.
I think there are issues, there are always going to be issues with those who are struggling.
Yes, ma'am.
But we have support there for them. So
Okay.
you're going to have those, I'm not going to sit here and say, no, we don't have any, because I know that's not true, but
Right.
but we're there for them. We have smoke group, we have professionals still who are willing to come in and to help out.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Yates as well, in full support.
Yeah.
I said Mr. Yates. Who was supposed to? Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. And I do want to take a brief moment to applaud this motion. It has been a long effort. So thank you to so many residents. I know that you're not here tonight, residents who often come here, but many residents who don't often come here who really engaged with us around this policy and around contacting the professionals who have come in. I want to give a big thank you to the health department and Neely Dahl there for her support in helping us find great example policies and find professionals to work with us. The health department's been a wonderful partner in this initiative. To Pamela Jewers, who's been very involved in our asset managers and really, making sure the meetings happen. And I already mentioned Ms. Oliver, who really spearheaded on the part of the board. FAR's been a great partner in this, and we really feel that in addition to a policy that is fair and hopefully ensures that folks get the support they need, the process we used to create it was great because we didn't start at the last minute. We really did start this a long time ago, so there was enough time for lots of conversations and feedbacks and trainings and meetings at each site. And that process is one that I think we would love to pull the best up from and use that to develop and replicate that process as we go through this 5-year plan work. And that's why that's what's next on our agenda. And so in your agenda here, under tab, where are we, tab 4, is the 5-year plan that we recently passed. we're not discussing this plan tonight, but rather really the process that, yes, don't worry, we passed it, we're working through the goals.
That's what I thought. I'm like,
But really, and there's a template in here of a totally blank plan, because I think what we have before us is the opportunity not to just carry over this list of goals that we've been working from the past 5 years, where we add a little here and there, but really to start with a blank slate. But that's a little bit scary too, in terms of wanting to make sure that we don't lose the things of value from the old plan, but that we can structure something that maybe is really meaningful for everybody going forward for the next 5 years. As FAR and Brandon remind us, we're a different agency than we were 5 years ago, with much different goals and a lot on the
better leadership.
horizon. Thank you, Mr. Bellamy.
Good forward.
So, Mr. Duffield, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'll just add, we've got the first 2 pages behind tab 4 are the current goals and objectives from the current 5-year plan. The next 3 pages are the template and instructions for the revised 5-year plan process implemented by HUD. You may be aware, in the past, the 5-year plan that housing authorities have been required to put together really result in a tome of data and policy inclusion. I've included with your packets a separate handout with 5-year plans. There are 3 separate entities, 5-year plans in the handout. The first is the city of Buffalo. I think it is 16 pages. The next is James City County here in Virginia, and that is a 2-page 5-year plan. And then Prince William County, their 5-year plan, I think, is 8 pages in total. HUD has, as they have with the annual plan, streamlined the process, focusing very much on the goals and objectives table that has been included in the previous 5-year plans. It's what they're looking for, updates to those goals and objectives, and then asking specific questions about how we plan to implement, or how we implement specific policies, namely VAWA, as well as what kind of standards we want to set forth for acceptable revisions to the 5-year plan in the future. This is absolutely an opportunity to clean slate and draft where we see the vision for this agency in the future. Really excited to dig into this and move forward with FAR in the community to get that process rolling.
Mr. Duffield, what do you recommend as the starting point? Or how do we kick this off?
Yeah, I think that's something we probably ought to discuss a little bit, but perhaps it does take the form of something that looks like a kickoff event that reaches out to the community and recommends, seeks some engagement there. This is the opportunity to clean canvas, paint what your housing authority will look like in the next 5 years. Perhaps there's an opportunity, but I'll defer in large part to FAR and community leaders to help give us a sense of what that needs to look like.
Perhaps we should schedule a meeting with FAR and other strategic partners and to come up with a joint strategy for achieving a vision. And maybe we can have that in the next couple of weeks.
Would it be possible to flyer the neighborhoods so that we reach more than just kind of the FAR folks? Maybe there's some people.
Oh, I meant sort of a planning meeting that then says, here's all the steps we're going to take to get engagement around the plan. Thank you for helping me clarify.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
And what is the timeline on when this needs to be?
So we need to approve this with a 30-day comment period. 30 or 45 day
45
comment period. It's
day,
45.
yeah.
So it has to be we have to vote on a final plan by the end of the year.
Okay.
Because it's due to HUD December 31st.
Yeah, early January. but yes.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But we need to have a complete draft that we vote on 45 days before that. So typically we have a mid-December meeting, so this would be voted on in our October meeting. Most likely that's our sort of drop in point.
It would be voted on.
Probably at our October meeting, we'll vote on it. We'll get the final approval after a 45-day comment period in mid-December, but this will probably need to be finalized.
That follows the
In
annual
October.
plan process. Yeah.
So usually we do a big round, like starting in September August and September, and we're really moving it up to do it over the whole summer so that we can get a lot more input and thinking. I'm even wondering if there's sort of a survey function that's not deep, but sort of laying out and prioritizing values that just anyway, we'll brainstorm at the planning meeting. Not a door-to-door kind of thing, but something that's quick and easy we can use at events. Okay.
I have a question before
Yes,
we move
ma'am.
forward. On page, I don't think it is page. Hang on for a second. I just need some clarity. I know we said we wasn't gonna get into it, but I need some understanding. Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority, and then page 2 of 2. And that is B2, page 202.
So this is just an example
Yeah,
plan.
but I want to understand something that they have in here, just in case we need to use this. I need understanding. So on the goals and objectives, it says identify the PHA's quantifiable goals and objectives that will enable the PHA to serve the needs of the low income, very low income, and extremely low income families for the next 5 years. Can somebody give me some type of clarification of what quantifiable means in this reading? Page 2 of 2.
Well,
B2.
as you look through, you can see some of their goals are things like improve their FOS scores, improve CMAP scores. So that's something you can quantify. You can say in year 1 we had a 3, and in year 3 we had a 5 as a score. So we've improved. So that's a quantifiable goal. They want goals that they can benchmark and measure themselves against easily, and not subjective things like, oh, I think our staff's nicer. Really.
So is this to say that is 2 goals list? One goal list is an overall goals list, and then this would be a second or sub goals list that pretty much, I guess, is more expressive of what the goals are?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the list underneath here are the actual goals. And then under there is the ways that they're going to measure them. So like these little anything by a dash is how you can see how they're going to quantify and measure their progress on their goals. Wait, I think this is where you are, right? So this is the section.
No, I'm not there, I'm here.
No, that's
Page 2 of 202.
Oh, you know what? This is James City.
James City County. Yeah.
Oh, you're at James City County.
I'm right before Prince William County Office Housing and Community Development.
Yes, they have a very short 5-year plan, and that is all of their goals.
So, and this just one box is all of their goals?
That's all that they cared to provide to HUD. It doesn't mean that they don't have a strategic plan or they don't have something deeper in their community. It just means this is all they chose to share with HUD.
No, that's what I was getting ready to say. I was just wondering if that was something, where we have movable space versus long list, short list. Because as you know, ours is very long.
No, absolutely, and as
It's
we've done.
extremely long, Grant.
Yeah, right. As we've done with the annual plan, in a box like that, we'll say, see attachment, whatever, and then we have the list, fairly exhaustive, yeah,
Typically,
absolutely.
in our efforts towards transparency, we provide more information than James City County seems to have provided.
Just want
There's some strategy, because you got a lot of people with hair now, and you don't say much. Okay, thank you. Are there other thoughts or questions about 5-year planning process?
Not to belabor the point, I really like just for it to be noted, I like the Violence Against Women Act policy. The VAWA, I would just like if we could make that violence against persons, because we've seen instances in which females may be the aggressor and males not want to say certain things, so it can be equal opportunity.
Fair enough, thank you. I want to say thank you to staff for providing us with these examples. That's really useful to see other plans.
Good.
And the reason, just to be a hammer, that we put it on the agenda tonight, even though there's no action was required, is just to encourage all board members to be super engaged in this process. And that it's going to be long, like the smoking policy was, but really valuable, I think, for the next 5 years of the agency. And there's a couple of us who will still be here 5 years from now at this dais, but there's a couple of us who won't. So we gotta make your mark.
What? No. No.
None of us are dying. None of us are dying. Our terms end. The terms end. Some of us will be finishing our second terms in less than 5 years. That's not like, well, okay. Moving on.
Yes, moving on now.
Redevelopment updates.
Let's see, behind tab 5 on your packets this evening, Commission, you've got 2 documents. We have a development partner RFQ, and then we have a resolution 1382. Don't mind, I'll take a moment and speak to development partner RFQ. This is the culmination of many months of work with FAR, our residents and our stakeholder groups, to put together an RF, request for qualifications, proposal process by which we will select developers to begin our first phase of redevelopment at CRHA. And is a monumental step. The way the document sets and the process sets up from here is we have essentially 2 rounds, 2 stages of qualification of developers. The first, this request for qualifications will invite developers to submit statements of qualifications that demonstrate their experience in development of public housing, low-income housing, affordable housing, as well as their understanding and knowledge of the Charlottesville communities. That process, the RFQP has been released to the public. We will have responses in by the end of May. Once we have completed that process, select a short list of developers to submit on specific projects as we move forward. Our next hurdles are to draft a formal request for proposals that will take existing sites that we anticipate redevelopment occurring on and request of the qualified developers that we select them to come back and present us with specific development project concepts, plans, again, that reflect the values of the community and also demonstrate their expertise in completing those types of projects. We would anticipate having a developer partner on board by the, I'll need to look at it, certainly by the close of summer, I believe in early August, if I'm not mistaken. And then be moving forward towards actual redevelopment efforts at South First Street, undeveloped South First Street, Levy Avon, and potentially some Crescent Halls work, but we need to see how that fleshes out. That is a very abbreviated summary of what's been taking place to this point. I would certainly welcome any comments, questions, or input from others who've been very closely involved with this process.
My first question, I thought we might be voting on this tonight. This has already been released to the public? This is advertised and?
We voted at the last meeting pending finalization of language by the redevelopment committee.
Okay. Well, the only thing I didn't see in there that we had discussed was we had potentially discussed limiting the number of pages of submittals, and if it's on the street, it's not an issue. You'll find, the good guys will probably be concise and clear. There will be somebody that just opens his file cabinets and sends you everything he's ever done, and we'll have to figure out what's relevant and what's not, but that's not an issue at this point. Now, the only thing I would add to what you said, we talked about a developer partner. I think there could be partners, and we hope this is partners for more than an immediate job. I mean, we're hoping to build a relationship that is ongoing, that can really benefit all our residents and all our residences, all our residential units. So depending on the skills of what comes forward. It's a really complicated process, and we're looking to have a partner who is more creative than us in all aspects of development, I would hope. Financing, it'll be a real challenge. We have a lot of internal issues to discuss going forward, and I would only say that this is kind of the tip of the iceberg. Now we've put dates on paper that other professionals are committing to, so our work for the RFP is really on a timeline now that's kind of out of our hands if it truly is published. So we have almost as much work as we did before. We've barely really started.
But we're moving in the right direction.
Absolutely.
So I have two questions. Just looking in terms of timeline, so the date for the RFQ, the deadline for the RFQ is when?
May 31st. You'll find page 22 is, page 22 of the RFQ document. It lays out the timeline or the program schedule for this process.
Sorry, thank you.
No, it's hard to find. There you go.
That answers my questions. Thank you.
You had another question?
No, ma'am, that answers it.
Other thoughts and questions?
Job well done.
Yeah, thank you too.
This is a huge step for us, the city. We're moving in the right direction.
We will say those of you who might know of a project that you love that you visited in another state, know of good development partners or folks who've done great affordable housing development. This is public. Please share it. It's hard to distribute it as widely as possible without everybody playing a role. So I know we have members of city council who have a lot of contacts, and city council themselves have sought many contracts. So please feel free to market this in your communities as well. And for those of you who might not have that list, you do know residents and are able to really tell them that things are moving, and we're going to be having developers, meeting with them over the course of the summer. That we'll have real plans that we'll need a lot of conversations with residents about. But it is actually happening, which people don't believe. But here we go. Other thoughts or questions? Thank you. Ms. Retger, you have, that was from the Redevelopment Committee, and now from the Strengthening Systems PMT Committee. Ms. Retger, do you want to tell us how things are developing in the contract with Enterprise? You'll find this in tab 5.
Oh, yeah. So we had a meeting, it was last Friday, I believe it was like the 23rd of April. there were representatives from FAR, city, CRHA, residents.
Did you find it?
So,
No.
Stop. No. Keep going.
You good?
Stop.
Yeah.
It was in front of this one. It's tab 5. Mine was tab
It
5.
is fine?
Yeah.
It's at the back of tab
I
5.
didn't find mine,
I didn't.
Okay.
but that may be.
Oh,
It's in the same thing with development.
I'm sorry. My folder seems to be arranged slightly differently from you all's folder. My apologies.
Maybe that's what I did. I took it out. Anyway,
It's in
anyway.
there. Not that.
So,
It looks like this. It says enterprise at the
There we
top.
go. Yeah, it's
Mine's at the back.
right.
Of
But
that
The
big.
back of the RF.
Yeah.
It was at the back of the RFP.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
5 or 6 pages prior to the.
Sorry.
to the
Yeah,
end.
thank
It
you.
must be the back of this big stack. I took it out
I
already.
was wondering what happened with that. Okay. We good?
Almost. Let's
Okay.
Oh, yeah. You just have 2 more pages. There you go.
All right, so we met, I believe it was the 23rd. It was last Friday. And there were Grant and I from the CRHA. We had FAR, city, residents, and sitting together to try to figure out what remaining work we would like Enterprise to do. They had submitted a proposal, and I think people were supportive of that proposal to move the work forward. Just to refresh, we had contracted with Enterprise in a strengthening systems grant, meaning having the city, CRHA, FAR working together to strengthen the way we work together to help with the redevelopment process. I mean, it would be great to strengthen systems anyway, but the focus is on moving the redevelopment, or strengthening the redevelopment process as we go. So this fall, we stopped work with Enterprise to talk with them about a conflict of interest. So they've come back to us with this new proposal, which is slightly reduced since they'd already used some money in their first visit. And the committee, the project management team, felt that this was a good proposal. The debate is how much we are strengthening systems and how much we are moving redevelopment forward, but hopefully the work will do both. So I left that meeting a little early, and when I left, it seemed that there's been some frustration with just the way the grant had sort of been stalled. The redevelopment committee can move on, and there's some decision-making. This grant is kind of, doesn't have any decision-making to it, and so there was some discussion about how to move forward and engage Enterprise with, make sure that everyone is benefiting from their expertise, but also just how do we work best together, since we have this board meeting, we have the redevelopment committee meeting, we have so many meetings. So how do we plug them in the best? I think, Grant, at the end, there was not a conclusion to exactly how that would work. Is that correct? The PMT would remain in.
Yeah, I think the PMT remains as its own entity at this point.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
And,
But we had discussed trying to combine with
Right.
redevelopment committee so that this work would flow through the people who are looking and making decisions, looking at things and making decisions. Anyway, so through the work, the meeting, the Charlottesville Area Community Foundation thought it would be great if we passed a resolution so that all 3 organizations, the city, FAR, and the Redevelopment Authority, showed their support to work with Enterprise as they come back. And that's what is sitting before you. I think support, meaning they just wanted to make sure everyone was on board before we move forward. I know that's a little unclear.
Well, if you read the document, they definitely spell out some roles and responsibilities in terms of expectations that they want to make sure this board is committed. And there's an entire section on work that Enterprise will do to strengthen the capacity of the board of CRHA to be able to make decisions regarding redevelopment, particularly around commitments we'll make towards effective and authentic resident engagement and how that engagement will be incorporated into our work. But they also are offering all kinds of, or a suggestion for some trainings that I think will require a little finesse as we negotiate with them, but is that where I'm looking for the task? Task 2, I believe, in this document before you, talks about strengthening CRHA governance, and it talks about they'll do an assessment of our strength as a board, they'll develop a communication plan between the board and residents, so assuming we need to be part of that communication planning, facilitate a board service workshop, develop and conduct a board training focused on public housing redevelopment, including redevelopment models, financing options, and development partnerships, which hopefully will also be with residents. A best practices training for boards covering ways that we can be the best agency possible to move forward on redevelopment. So all of that is a commitment on the part of this board to show up to those things.
Right.
And so, the funder is very concerned, I think, that all parties understand the new roles and responsibilities that are proposed under this work plan. And so I read that out because I want to make sure that this board is there. Because, we've got a redevelopment committee, we've got the PMT, we've got a couple of us that are doing things, and now all of a sudden we're saying, in addition to 5-year planning, in addition to, regular board work, we're also now going to be adding on a capacity building piece specifically around redevelopment planning and resident engagement for the board and strengthening our governments, which will require all 7 of us.
So I have a question. It's saying that, so we have the PMT and all of the other things. So the PMT is not one and the same as Enterprise, that is correct?
Right, the PMT was, when we got the grant, it was the project management team, so there were representatives from the different organizations that were set to meet to hire Enterprise.
And that was the only way we could get the grant. It had to be
A shared committee. But since then, I think the shared committee is great, but we tend to worry more about the scope of the work, I think, and haven't really done any actual work. So I think the change will be, if they come back, that we have to find a way for them to be able to reach everyone and interact and work with all of us. It's been very contained.
And understanding that, was Enterprise brought on board to be decision makers or just to give advice?
I think to facilitate decision making, to help us give us information, expertise, but also to help us. Yeah,
they weren't brought on to essentially make any decisions. It's simply a facilitating group that was contracted, and they're, as you just alluded to, their sole purpose was to be able to help us move towards making a direction to move forward and move faster.
So, to clarify the resolution that we're talking about, is this resolution asking for us to allow them to now be decision makers?
No.
no.
Here's the resolution if you want to read it.
Yeah, I read it, but I wanted clarity on it.
No. So
I just want to make sure that we didn't contract someone to come in to give us advice, and now we're giving them the authority to be decision makers. I just wanted that clarified.
Okay. No, the hope was, and actually a lot of great work has come, they were hired originally last summer. So in the time frame where they haven't been working with us, I think everyone on their own has been doing a lot of great work. So they, when the grant was written, we hadn't even really started in on the redevelopment work. So as they're coming back, I think they're looking at helping with resident engagement, how we get the information we need to do
good development, helping our board helping FAR strengthen their organization, and then helping us with action plans for redevelopment. So not necessarily making decisions, but helping us kind of get our ducks in a row, if that makes sense. And they've worked on many projects, so hopefully through the process we'll learn from them, but they won't. I don't think when we interviewed with them originally, they seemed very flexible and I'm looking at Brandon. I'm remembering, we were talking about different sort of the usual way redevelopment has been done in HUD and asking them for more creative approaches, and they seemed open to that, and they seemed to also question a lot of what we were questioning. So hopefully they can help us be creative, if that makes sense.
I think this conversation about enterprise is wishy-washy.
Yeah, it is.
I think that I'm feeling uncomfortable right now because I don't feel like we're getting much more than what we've gotten already from them. And I feel like some of the stuff that you just talk about, it's some of the things that we've already done, such as board training, and I'm just not feeling that right now. I'm just not sure where we're going with enterprise. So I don't know if it's a board discussion that we need to have about enterprise, but something needs to happen with enterprise.
Yeah, and I think part of it sounds wishy-washy because it kind of is. Like in these meetings, they keep proposing things, and then all of us talk about like, yeah, that piece is great, that piece is great. But in our own organizations, it hasn't filtered like through everyone to get feedback. And so the other piece is I think there's a percentage or priority to the different tasks. And if we come back and say we actually don't need quite as much, for board training, that's fine. They can put more of the money into
something else because we've already done that.
Yeah, so I think that's...
And there's some other stuff that we've already done,
right.
But I feel like we're past that. You're taking us back. We're past that. We're trying to move forward, and we're not moving forward with you all.
Yeah, so we can help. I think, we need a longer discussion about it, but we can help and say, we want a little bit of this, we want more of this. And that's happened in this small group, but it hasn't actually gotten back to everyone, so...
But Enterprise can't really do anything. I mean, they're waiting.
They're just waiting
for
to
everybody
make
to
sure.
sign off on this official scope of work or this new scope of work before things can. They're waiting on us, right? They're not coming down yet until we've all said, okay, we're willing to have you come down, and we'll put our time and resources into it if you come down. That's what they're asking from this resolution.
Well, are you done, Audrey? Did you have something else?
So that's a question to you. Will you put your time and resources into it?
Like I say, they wishy-washy. I don't know.
Fair enough.
Okay.
I have a question about page 6 for task 4 redevelopment action plan. It says a lot. It's given. I'm sorry. It's given a very small overview. Sorry, page 6. Dr. Bellamy, you have something?
No.
Sure.
Well, I wasn't. No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Page 6. Task 4 redevelopment action plan. It talks about what the redevelopment action plan, what the partners, I guess, they want to pull together in order to make it efficient, and what they would do. Enterprise will assist the housing partners transition to implementation of 2-year engagement strategy. What I don't really see is the support of the residents in relocation. I don't see any support anywhere that says this is what we would do as enterprise for support or sustainability for the relocation process. If we're going to talk about redevelopment, that needs to be in there. It needs to be some conversation about that. You can't have redevelopment if you don't have a relocation plan.
I'm just noting that for... So I guess the question is, they wanted us to vote as a board if we could support, put our time into working with them. I think there's flexibility
we can go back and adjust some of the actual tasks that they laid out, since we haven't been able to do that yet. And maybe that would even be better in person if they come, that we could sit with as a board and just say, hey, this is what we think. And, so I think this is an outline because they were asked to come up with, a proposed work plan. Yeah.
I'm on the perimeter of this whole enterprise effort, but my thoughts are, we're ready to engage with the various parties right now. We don't need 18 months of discussion about how we're going to do it. We need to start doing it. Right. We need to have them in the room to facilitate it. Right. Need to tell me when to shut up, whatever. But, we need facilitators and not coaches.
So more, yeah.
Yeah, I would say, there's FAR, and to some extent FAR with CRHA, but mostly FAR has been developing and carrying forward a resident engagement plan. I would love to find ways that's more of a partnership plan, and that perhaps they jump in less as designer of plan and more as advisor and flesher outer of existing plan, and jumping in and helping FAR with implementation, because I know that's a big piece of the supporting FAR is, helping FAR build capacity to do this kind of implementation.
And I believe that's what we've discussed as a PMT, that we're really looking at a two-phase engagement strategy here, that exactly to what Mr. Osteen said. FAR is on the ground, they're getting it done as far as this first redevelopment effort that the RFP covers. Yeah, makes no sense to have somebody come in and reinvent the wheel there. Now, to the extent that they can help support what FAR's done at this point and, work with FAR at FAR's request, cool. That'll work, but true. But as we look at the post-phase one kind of redevelopment, the next areas that we'll focus on, okay, maybe there's a way to learn from, our current experience, their knowledge base, and work on an engagement plan there. Yeah.
Now, are we seen as the problem in all this? We've got this resolution in front of us. Does FAR have something similar that?
Yeah.
They will.
And do we know the status of that? They're considering it as we're considering it?
You'll be considering it at your board meeting in 2 weeks? I mean, is it
We
in
just
2
had
weeks?
the first meeting, so we're going for.
Right, I don't think the community foundations will carry forward with the grant until they've had some official
They aren't.
vote from each of the 3 entities in the grant.
So the city will.
The city will also be.
We'll have a similar
Right.
document asking for support.
For support, yeah. And, yeah.
Do you think that it'll be in jeopardy when it comes to the city?
No, I think there may be
That's a little wishy-washy.
some, no, I don't think, I just think that the city, some of my colleagues are going to want us to work with Enterprise for us to move forward with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, in our and I can say in our meeting, I think CRHA and FAR have played the bigger roles, and most of the work is working with them. And we have the directors of both organizations in the room, so we were talking to the city about we really need the decision makers, maybe city councilors in the room, and so hopefully that will come across. Maybe not you.
No, I'm just kidding. When's the next meeting?
They're not open to the public. You'll have to be invited or appointed by Maurice.
Yeah, that's what but
Yeah.
I'm more than likely will be too.
I don't know yet. I think they're just waiting for us to say whether we're going to move forward on this. But that was one of our discussions is, how to get, who do we need to talk to at this grant, have in the room from the city.
Okay. Are there other thoughts, questions, or is it time for a motion?
Someone would like to make a motion? I don't feel quite comfortable doing so.
Do you have it? Do you have the resolution in front of you?
And I'll say, I've taken notes, what we just talked about now. I think if we say we're gonna support it, we can meet with them in person and flush out how we'd like them to help. I don't think that this means that we're sealing we're not saying yes exactly to their work plan. We're just saying, yes, we'd like to work with them.
To give our time for us to work with them and for them to work with us.
Yeah. I think we can give them feedback on the actual plan of work.
Well, I move approval of CRHA Resolution Number 1382, a resolution committing CRHA to work with FAR in the city of Charlottesville to support the work, Charlottesville Strengthening Systems and Housing Development. And I would make one slight change. It looks like the last paragraph. The authority does hereby commit to support and father the work.
Shall we further it?
Fathering just sounds like too much responsibility for us.
They want us to be parents.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the motion carries. Thank you. Everybody take a big breath, and we're going to move to next on our agenda. Mr. Duffield, if you want to talk to us about HCV rental payment thresholds.
Certainly. Commissioners, behind tab 6 in your notebooks is Resolution 1384. This is a resolution that is required by HUD annually as the fair market rents are
Rising.
Yeah. Rental standards are released by HUD annually. We have to, for our HCV program, affirm what our payment standards are going to be. The table embodied within the resolution is what it includes. The first row is the current fair market rent. The next row in the table is what our 110% payment standard would represent of fair market rent. HUD will allow us to set our HCV rental standards at up to 110% of fair market rent value. Just given the nature of rental housing in Charlottesville, we found routinely in the past that we have to exercise that 110% FMR limit in order to be remotely competitive and enable our clients to have a chance to live within the city of Charlottesville, again, but just based on the local rental market. So this evening I'd ask the Commission's favorable consideration of Resolution 1384, establishing our payment standards for the HCV program.
So does this mean that the payment standard per voucher is going up, and I guess in easier terms to understand what you're saying?
Yeah.
The shorter way is to say that the voucher amounts are going up.
I think what I'm saying is that the amount that we can allocate for each bedroom size
is this the maximum?
Is the maximum. It doesn't require us to pay that for each bedroom size.
But that's the maximum.
But that's the maximum.
Because the reason why I'm asking is because that maximum price is dependent upon the person's income as well, and other things that count in giving out vouchers. So that's why I was curious as to if there was the maximum or just a voucher raise.
No, that is. It's just the maximum limit. Thank you.
Is that the maximum payment for the apartment, or is that the maximum that we would pay towards an apartment?
Yeah, that was my question.
The top will be the maximum for the apartment, and the bottom will be the maximum we would pay for the apartment.
Not all of out of our pocket, the amount we would allow, and then we would pay whatever the difference.
Whatever our hot payment is.
Yeah, so we're looking at the 110% number is the only thing that's really relevant to us, right? The other one is just what it's based on.
That's right.
So just take the first one, for example, 827.
Right.
Is that the maximum that a landlord gets paid, and we're paying part of that, and the tenant is paying part of that?
That's the,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
the maximum allowable
Thank you.
rent.
Allowable. Now, a landlord might charge less than that.
Now, but
That's the maximum.
that's it's a flip side to that, because that is dependent upon whether or not a resident who holds the voucher loses their income, and then therefore we will be responsible for the full amount of the rental payment until such time as the resident has reacquired a new job and income. So yeah, there are times where we have had to pay the maximum of that number until the resident has acquired or reestablished employment.
Thank you.
This is coming from the city's affordable housing fund, correct?
I'm sorry, this is
Is it the HUD dollars or is it the city?
Well, this is the HUD standard
Yeah, HUD,
for
right.
market rent rates.
I'm sorry.
in
And
Charlottesville.
When any voucher we approve, but regardless of its funding source, will rely on these numbers.
Right, I'm sorry. I
So it's for
put-
both.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was more so asking just for clarification in the event
Yeah.
that we fall into a situation like Ms. Talbot described, those dollars will come from the pot from the city housing voucher, or would this be the HUD?
If
Just
the
money
family
we-
has a voucher through the city program, then
Yeah.
it'll come from those dollars. If that family has a voucher through the traditional HCV
Right.
program, the dollars come from that.
Got you. Okay.
Are there other questions? All right.
So I move the CRHA resolution number 1384, a resolution affirming the CRHA HCV program rental payment schedule for FY 28 for fiscal year 2018-19, April the 30th, 2018. Whereas the Charlottesville redevelopment. Oh, okay.
Thank you. You don't have to go over there. I was just.
I thought I was good.
Is there a second? I love your voice,
I
but
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is Resolution 1385 on internet service access. Again, real thanks to Commissioner Bellamy for his work in spearheading this effort in negotiations and conversations with Ting and with City Council for funding. Mr. Bellamy, you want to tell us about this resolution? You'll find it
Sure.
under tab 7, I believe.
We're almost there. Team provided a brief presentation at the last city council meeting. The information that they provided was enough for us to be able to move forward. So essentially what you see here is that we need to pass a resolution, we being the CRHA, for us to go into working and entering contract negotiations with Team. After the contract is finalized, we'll bring the contract back to, well, obviously, the board will be able to see it. The contract will also be seen by City Council, and then the funds will be allocated. It's scheduled to be on the consent agenda for us to be able to move forward. And then we can begin with the timeline in terms of allowing Team to be able to start the installation process.
Mr. Bellamy,
Yes, sir.
if I understood correctly, from our discussions and speaking with City Manager Jones, passage of this resolution will enable City Council to set aside the
Yes.
funding for the project.
Yes.
Once a contract is negotiated and agreed to, then funding can be released by
Correct.
City Council, correct?
Correct.
All right.
We're almost there.
All right.
So we need this document, write the contract, start getting it popping. Don't put that on the news. I mean, and
Just
then we
for
can proceed
saying that,
forward.
include that, please.
Right. Then proceed.
So I have a few questions.
Okay, sure.
I think. So when they go, okay, is this per unit? Like
Yes.
each unit gets their own
Each unit
thing?
will have their own installation.
Okay.
They have their own or hardware, whatever's needed to have the high-speed internet in their specific unit.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the units would be wired whether they accept the service or not, so that maybe they have DirecTV and then they decide down the road they
Correct.
want to have Ting. It'll already be wired. The only thing they would have to acquire is the hardware to have it hooked up.
So for another question.
Sure.
So for those who already have internet service through another ISP, how does that work?
Right, so they can choose to continue to keep the service that they have and pay what they choose to. This is just offer, but this is Ting service is 1 gigabyte, extremely fast, and it's being offered for $9.99 a month. So they can choose to say, no, I just want to stick with what I have. That's fine.
I was just
the option will
asking.
be there
'Cause,
for everybody.
I mean,
no, I understand.
I have Comcast currently, so.
Yeah. So for example, like if you wanted to keep Comcast, right? But if you decided that you wanted to keep Comcast, you would have every right to do so. You just would have access to this extremely high-speed internet at a very, very discounted rate. And it's not going to cost the housing authority anything.
That sounds good.
Let's go.
We're working on it.
All right,
But
so
but it's still the $9.95.
the residents,
monthly. Is that what you just said?
Yes, ma'am.
So they're doing the same thing that Xfinity is doing
No,
with the essential.
no. This is different from what the essential package. So
Yeah, please tell me the difference.
Sure. So there's a few. 1 gigabyte is a lot faster than what's currently being offered by the Xfinity. Secondly, with the Ting situation, there's no pre-existing conditions that would disqualify you from being able to take advantage of this service. What we've seen with the Comcast situation is that if you have had Comcast before, you're disqualified. And there's some other, which I don't really want to go into what some of the disqualifiers for Comcast, but this has, again, no pre-existing conditions. This is very, very fast internet. You don't have to pay for the installation. Again, this is what the city's picking up on that tab. And if you don't choose to take it, it's fine. But there are some distinctions between the two for sure. Mainly being that 1 gigabyte. That's
well, I know Xfinity have a deal where you can get the laptop for $150 additional with their service.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're offering that with,
there's a little bit more.
It's
a little bit more that comes with it.
But I'm thinking we might need to do a little bit more comparison. But
I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a metered connection?
I'm sorry?
Is this a metered connection where they will monitor how much you're using?
No.
Okay.
That's unlimited. But
okay, that's all I need to know.
Yeah.
Because I'm a gamer, so is my brother. So I'm being serious.
Yeah.
There are problems with the competitor, I should say.
Right.
Whereas, okay, so it's something to think about.
We're aware. I mean, that's the other thing. There's a cap on how much you can use with the essentials. Right. There's no cap on this. You use however much you need to. And then I know Ms. Chairwoman Jones and I, we had a discussion this past weekend, over the weekend, while she was dancing and having a good time. I won't talk about that. But we had a discussion this weekend also about having a conversation with Ting about customer service. And then as they come into our sites and work with our units, how they interact with the residents, making sure that they provide top-notch customer service. I had a conversation with representative from Ting today, in which they are fully open and amenable and susceptible to that. So I think it'll be a win for everyone if we can continue to move forward.
Yeah, y'all hanging on it.
That's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda.
You need to say what the event was, please.
So we were at the 100 Black Men of Central Virginia Annual Scholarship Gala. And I had no idea Ms. Jones knew how to do the electric slide. She's wobbling and everything else. There you go.
Emotion.
Well, I have one question. So we're going to have a lot of new units coming online soon. Has there been any discussion about applying this to going forward?
Yeah.
Same unit cost?
Right. So same unit cost. We've had that discussion. Hopefully those units can come sooner than later, but I don't want that to stop us.
Absolutely. Understand.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How long is the relationship between the city, this plan, and the CRHA? And if, let's say, for a chance, the Ting goes out of business, have there been any conversation about what we would do next?
No. Help me understand that question.
So we know that things come and things go.
Right.
We know that there are competitors. We know that people fall off. We know that companies buy other companies. Mm-hmm. So in the future, if then circumstances that happen, has there been any conversation about next steps?
Oh, we can include that in the contract, but in all actuality, Ting is trying to expand And the
Totally
city-
understand that. So was T-Mobile. So was KFC.
Yeah, I
Does
mean,
does it mean that, the infrastructure would just be there and not used?
Right, and so that was my question.
It'd be.
it would just not be.
So we
used.
need to have conversation. Dr.
Well, I
Baldwin?
mean, what would we want for them to remove if they went out of business? Remove their hardware?
No, what I'm saying is, so we have Ting, and then let's say now they're no more, they're non-existent now. So what does that mean for the housing authority and their $9.99 package deal?
Well, if they're not in existence, we wouldn't be able to get it.
Right, so what would be next steps? Will we'll still be in a relationship where now, at that point, we will be searching out something else and the city would still be willing to fund us then? Or are we just
No, I don't
at a
think
place
so.
where there's another agreement that has to be
No,
established?
I don't think the city would be willing to.
I mean, the reality is this resolution and the contract we're talking about is a one-time
Right.
pot of money to cover the cost of installation only. Once it's installed, the city and the housing authority have zero obligation. And Ting is promising us to provide the service. But this money is just about installation. It's not about the ongoing.
Right.
Well, let's get the ball rolling, get us some free internet.
Not free.
It's not free. It's not free, but I mean,
It's basically free.
$9.95.
I mean,
No,
but
I
if you look
agree.
at it
Yeah.
compared to what some people are paying, it's a
$99.
steal. I mean,
Oh, I agree.
All right, so is there a resolution?
Right. Sounds
Yes.
like there's a motion.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve CRHA resolution number 1385, a resolution authorizing CRHA to enter into contract negotiations with Ting Internet to create internet service access at all CRHA residences, community centers, medical clinics, and offices.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Ms. Chairwoman Jones, I'd ask, if possible, could we table discussion of item number 11 on the agenda until our next board meeting?
We're asking to table the conversation on public safety, and I would love to have that when we have some more residents in attendance. And I know we hope to get someone from the police department to join us as well. So, for
You said that how many times?
our May 30th meeting,
Please.
Can I ask that for the public safety discussion, that we formally invite FAR to please invite some residents out for that discussion so that we can get some resident input, if you don't mind.
thank you. With that then, Mr. Duffield, we have the Executive Director's Report, which you'll find under tab 8 in your binders.
Thank you, Chairwoman Jones. Members of the commission, behind tab 8 is the Executive Director's Report for the period March 23rd, 2018 to April 27th, 2018. I will briefly touch on a couple of items. We've spent a fair amount of time recently helping bring the Residents on the Job program up to speed. We're still, as Mr. Collins mentioned in his comments, we're still working through some of the tweaks there. Spent a significant amount of time working on the RFQ, RFP document. We are currently recruiting for several positions, conducted interviews. We have more interviews to be scheduled. I'll speak about that in a moment. Completed a relocation planning workshop seminar with the HUD's Office of Uniform Relocation Act during this period of time, and we focused a great deal on the smoke-free policy and lease addendum. Other items that are likely interest, we've got pre-REAC inspection work is underway. We actually have USIG, which is a inspection company, to come to town, to come to CRHA middle of next month to do pre-REAC inspections. We are scheduling assistant asset manager interviews. We have extended an offer to hire for an administrative position. I'm waiting for confirmation on that. One of the items I'd like to bring to the commission, potentially at the next meeting, would be an organizational or overview, where we are today and where we are headed from a staffing standpoint. And I bring that for discussion at this point, in that as we hire for our administrative position, we have one that we're waiting confirmation, anticipate staffing another administrative position and creating essentially what would amount to a call center in which all calls to CRHA come to that center and then get routed back to the proper parties. The vision here would be that we would have a center that's open, lines that are answered from 8 in the morning until 8 in the evening. When a resident calls to place a work order, that work order gets generated immediately and dispatched to the correct party. We have an email trail that we can go back and document. If the resident has email or text capability, we're then able to also email or text confirmation back to the resident, so that we begin to close some of these loopholes and some of these just dead areas in our customer service experience today, and be better able to ensure that work orders issues get addressed as need be, and our customers are kept abreast of where they stand and where things stand with their concerns. It will, out of this process will also create opportunities to be able to go back and more readily audit our performance on the calls that come in. So again, taking a step back, I'd like to bring a better or illustration for the commission to consider moving forward, based around, in no small part, this customer service approach.
Does that mean that you're gonna need new equipment, more equipment as far as phone lines? Or is that gonna be our Yardi system that's gonna be able to take care of all of that?
We have plenty of phone lines. We probably have more phone lines than we know what to do with right now, almost literally. Yardi will be an essential piece of our customer service approach. Part of this is frankly going to require that we get a lot smarter around Yardi in general, and we are working on making that happen as well.
I have a question.
I think it should be some type of discussion for, I'm sorry, Mr. Yates. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish your question.
You sure your body language says you want to speak first?
I'll go ahead. I'll hold it until you finish.
Okay, thank you very much. I think some conversation should be had in reference to this, Mr. Duffield, as far as separate phone lines. If it's going to be from 8 in the morning to 8 at night, because then we would move away from personal telephone lines being used for time that needs to be dedicated to that system. And those phones can be transported during those business hours for whomever decides that they would take that position. And those phones will be committed only to the using for this particular job description. Mr. Yates, I'm getting out of your way, sir.
Going back to the call center type thing, is that something we would contract out?
That's something that we'll staff, ourselves.
So have we thought about, you know what I'm about to say, right?
Let's hear it.
Section 3?
No, yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, most definitely.
Great. Thank you.
Just touching on one other item, we've got our new camera system at Crescent Halls. Everything is installed. We have the IP addresses in place. The system will be active this week. So finally, that that becomes operational. As you look at the accompanying documentation, Commission, this is for the period that ends March 30, 2018. This is the end of our fiscal year. Yeah, overall, in our public housing side, we are showing at this point a positive revenue in excess of expenditures of $32,509. Our HCV balance is significantly, find it here, scattered size. Yeah, our Housing Choice Voucher Program, revenue in excess of expenditures of $162,500. Certainly, those numbers are subject to change as additional charges and revenues get posted in the coming weeks, but at this point, it appears that we have finished 2017-18 in the black, and that's a nice thing to be able to say.
Yes,
Okay.
let's pause for a moment to reflect on a job well done by staff and spending our resources wisely and coming in under budget. Well done.
Well,
That's
so-
not an easy thing to do.
Well, at the moment.
Good job.
Beginning with the legal sheets, you've got a summary of the work orders for this reporting period. Again, just provide this as information for you to consider. 209 total work orders. 166 of those are what I would call actual sort of resident-driven work orders. The difference is our community center. We enter a work order when we have openings and closings. So while those will show in the numbers, they're not essentially, true work orders. Again, the information here gives you a sense of, a brief description of what the call is involved, whether or not it's an emergency, a semi-emergency, or routine. All the ones with status closed are closed out. You'll see a handful of those, I guess 12 as of this point, that are still pending. And then does include the work order number beside it. Again, just provided for information.
So you said the ones that say call are the ones that are still being worked on?
That are still, have not been completed.
So it doesn't tell us whether it's still being worked on hold for reasons such as maybe repair or just open. It just says call. And I'm just saying that because for reader's sake, it just looks like somebody called in a work order, it's just sitting there.
Okay.
I'm wondering if there's a way where we can indicate that it's still being worked on, we haven't gotten to it yet, or it's in process.
That's a good point. Let me see what we can do. Thank you. Following the work order sheet is the actual financial hard data for the month. I'm not going to begin to kind of walk through that. That's something you can do when you're having trouble going to sleep, okay? Chairwoman Jones and Commissioners, that's all I have my report this evening. I'm happy to field any questions.
We can't finish a minute early.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I guess we got to.
We have
other
a question.
business.
We
Public
have,
comment.
we're gonna be
Oh.
close.
Wait,
Oh,
Yes, sir.
it's something sample.
okay.
Number of late fees addressed. Is that on here?
No, it's not. We need to record that again.
And y'all thought it was something bad.
That's not bad, no, thank
Late
you
fees
for your
are
attention.
bad.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of hard if you get paid at some point in the month and then, like, okay, I get rent due the first. Yeah, I get that, but I don't get paid until 5 days after that, 6 days after that. So I mean, it's kind of sometimes you just can't help it.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Duffield. Any other business this evening?
I just have one question, and mine isn't bad either. I just want to know what's going on with the landscaping on 6th Street. I did
Landscaping everywhere.
I'm not sure about everywhere, but I did a walkthrough on 6th Street, and I was wondering, the grass is very high.
Cutting grass.
And I'm just wondering what's going on. I haven't had a chance to walk the other sites yet.
Okay.
I would like to extend that to all the sites because it's kind of getting a little outrageous.
It rained a lot.
Yeah.
That too.
What I was gonna say. We should have been done cutting. We should have used last Thursday and Friday to cut, but we got rain, and then it rained a little bit more. So we're getting onto it now.
Should be done by the end of the week?
Oh, absolutely.
Excellent, thank you so much,
It's supposed to
Scott.
be nice all week.
Yeah, it's gonna make the grass grow. Thank you. Any other business this evening? Fantastic. Meeting dates, announcements, you can see some of the things we have scheduled. Redevelopment Committee coming up May 8th and May 22nd. Resident Services, May 10th. Our regular board meeting, again, for the month of May is on Wednesday, the 30th, because of Memorial Day. Another 30th, exactly a month from today, Wednesday, the 30th, here in City Council chambers. And residents do be on the lookout for notices about meetings to sign smoking policy lease addendums. Are there public comments at this time?
I'm
yes,
sorry,
Mr.
I'm going to,
Duffield.
just because I failed to mention it, and I need to mention it, and again, FAR and legal aid are helpful to CRHA in a number of cases involving advocacy on behalf of our residents. I had the opportunity in the past couple of weeks. Emily was extremely helping us avert what could have been a really unpleasant, tragic situation. Not involved in. Thank you. And it goes, and I should go without saying. I mean, Rachel and Brandon, very much week in, week out, are helpful. I don't think that gets expressed as frequently as it probably should. But yeah, thank you.
I have a question. Are these done monthly now? This is nice.
It's nice.
These are done monthly now. The only
Who did that? Oh, thank you. All right.
the only thing that I was looking in here for was the dates, community dates for the garden. The times and dates for the community to be able to visit the garden. I think First Street has a garden now, and I know that they used to give away vegetables at Crescent Halls. So maybe if we can add that, the times and the dates, that'll be wonderful too for the public.
we can get
But
Farmer
this is
Todd to give
nice.
us a
This
little-
is a good job.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Are there public comments?
Okay, Brandon Collins, once again from FAR, Public Housing Association of Residents, 434-984-3255. You guys have probably heard me say this before when I greet Commissioner Oliver, one of the hardest working people in government. And I think, it's got to be a huge relief to be almost done with this smoking policy. 43 meetings is what y'all said. Audrey's been there, Commissioner Oliver's been there from the get-go and really has put a ton of work into making this work, into making it fair for everybody, and for carrying on one of the things that we told you all from the get-go, which was, Holly Edwards had reminded us that this is policy related to health, and we really needed to focus on that. And Audrey, Commissioner Oliver has driven that home in just a spectacular way. So this is a good example of getting some stuff done, and one individual, resident of public housing, really knowing her stuff and getting stuff done. So I hope you all will give her the kudos that are due her at every opportunity. I did want to chime in about the lease addendum, something I forgot to mention, which I'm sure you will do, which is when you're signing those lease addendums, can you please make sure that every resident gets an updated copy of their lease handed to them that they can keep in their records. We would really love to see that, and we can all remind ourselves that needs to happen. I want to talk quickly about the payment standard. It's unfortunate because you've got a pile of money from HUD and you have a certain number of vouchers, and when the cost of housing goes up, that limits your ability to serve people. And unfortunately, once again, the Housing Authority is stuck with the burden of dealing with Charlottesville's affordable housing crisis, and I really don't think that's fair, and I think that it's something that needs to be considered, and I think it affects a lot of other things involved with this Housing Authority, including our relationship to the Strengthening Systems Grant and the role of other partners in this city in dealing with affordable housing. You all take on a huge burden. We want to see you succeed. I know we beat up on you a lot, and we're going to continue to beat up on you a lot, but you are the main resource for affordable housing in this city, and you've taken on a lot, and you're doing the best you can with the resources that are allocated to you. So let's get you some more resources. I do have one request about, so the packet didn't include the roll-up in Mr. Duffield's report, and I just want to make sure that the public can get that. I would love to be able to find a cool way to do some work orders comparisons. I'm not sure what that might look like, but if I can make sure that we can get a copy and just make sure that that gets out there. The other is we really need to look at summons for unlawful detainers and make sure we're monitoring that. Some of you may have heard Virginia has a terrible, terrible record as far as evictions in other cities, and it would be good to see how we stack up. I think there was a report on Richmond, 1 out of 4 residents have been to eviction court in the past year. Many other cities in Virginia, just terrible, terrible. And we have an eviction prevention policy that we don't hype up enough, and maybe we need to pay a little more attention to it, but hopefully it'd be good to see these numbers and see that we're doing a little bit better than the rest of the country on that. So that's it for now. Good job, everybody.
Are there other comments this evening?
No, but I forgot I had questions.
Great, thank you.
For
You have
Grant.
some questions, Mr. Yates?
Hey, Grant.
Yeah.
How's our website coming along?
It's coming. We're working on it. Okay.
Look, it needs some help.
Okay. Yeah.
And then it was another thing. Chromebooks or
Yeah, we are working on that as well. Okay.
see, you got answers for everything I got to ask you.
No, that's stuff.
Awesome.
We talked about that today. Yes, that's on the.
We talked about Chromebooks
or
or
some
some sort of
similar.
computer so that we don't get this
So we don't get
anymore.
this.
Each
Yep.
commissioner's gonna get a Chromebook?
If
Not
they
you.
need,
Not
if they need
Not
one.
you.
If they come with fancy
You already
computers
have
already.
yours, Dr. Bellamy.
If they come with fancy MacBooks, they don't get one.
No.
Okay.
Julie,
Yes,
I do
ma'am.
have one announcement.
Yes, please, announcements.
One announcement. The application process has started for the nurse at the clinic.
That's
The positions are still open. Haven't started interviewing yet, but the interviews should start next week.
Yay. That's fantastic. Thank you.
I have another
All
announcement.
right, announcement? Sorry, did you have a question for Ms. Oliver?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Duffield. Maybe
So if you're
communicate.
interested in driving a bus, the Go Driver application deadline is Friday, May 4th at 4. So if you're interested in doing that, be sure to get it in. And then it's another one, Go Culinary.
Go Culinary.
Yeah, Go Culinary, where they teach you how to basically be a cook. You get Serve Safe certification, stuff like that. So if you're interested, you can ask me for information. I can forward it to you.
You had a question, Mr. Bellamy?
So, Mr. Duffield, for the website, is that something that Brian Willard and Communications could possibly help with?
Potentially, yeah. Okay.
I can help with it.
Yeah.
Mr. Yates said he could help with it?
I sure can.
I thought he was the man.
Yeah.
He was
Are there other announcements or questions? All right, with that, our meeting is adjourned. And I will say we only went 3 minutes over
That's unbelievable.
from our start date.
And I got that
2 hours and 3 minutes. Well done, and I have a stack of 5 resolutions we passed tonight.
For all that. Seriously, Brandon was absolutely right.
It's all about Wes getting here on time.
I didn't even have an earlier meeting. I still gotta have it.
He beat me here this time,
Thank you,
Osteen.
ma'am.
That's a first, and
Wow. Dress up.
Yes, sir. I am well. How are you? Good. How about you? Let me see.
Thanks, Ms. Wilcox.
On your nerves,
Commissioner Yates, have a nice evening. What time? Yeah, how about, you want to do 11 o'clock tomorrow? Yeah, let's do that. All right? Sure. Yep.
No, I was sort of, did so horrible. I was like, people would know each other. And I just heard you said something. So we're just supposed to say, play along. One, I wasn't. And then I already got getting because he was going hours, which I had. I bet you. Enjoy Harrison control right. Well, at this point, the point is who's they can just like help us. You okay? I don't care what the PMT says. Honestly, there's no point. Once everyone's here, the PMT has one job. We need to set it up so that the enterprise, they were working directly with the agencies and reporting directly to them and not the PMT. And if so, then there's zero. There's no way. The PMT can meet twice a year and approve payments. Yeah. At 11 o'clock.
What's this?
And then some people really like development, or like she should come because she's like, well, we don't know anything that's happening. Our meetings are open to the public. Everyone is welcome. Like everybody, if you're at the table, you would.
No, I sent that to say to put out a flyer. No, stop it. We've got to do it.
But at least we got to that they can come again.
Just make a door-to-door flyer for everybody.
Put it in the common area.
Which is fascinating. Brennan is in the same group. So she was sitting beside me. And I was getting tea, and she was like, I just want to do it. Coming back from my courts, a little, they were like, so I ended up, this was actually my idea. I was like,